And then in the Gospel of Matthew, we are told that you will never enter the kingdom of heaven if you do not follow the commandments of God. So you can either achieve eternal paradise or hellfire by doing charity or not doing charity. Again, in the Gospel of Matthew. So we can go on and on and on talking about the Gospel of Matthew, where Jesus Christ actually talks about the importance of law, salvation through the law. In fact, in chapter 5, verse 17, Jesus is believed to have said that, think not I've come to abolish the law, rather I've come to fulfill the law. And anyone who teaches you to go away from the law, even on a minor point or on one point, will be considered least in the kingdom of heaven. And we'll see what Paul did later on. Paul completely broke away from the Jewish law, and he preached that only faith in the cross or faith in the sacrifice of Jesus Christ is enough for salvation. You do not have to follow the law. Paul was very clear on that point.
Notice he appealed to Matthew 5:17 to 20 to try to prove again that Jesus in the Gospel of Matthew taught that keeping the law is what saves you. Doing the deeds of the law, the works of the law, is what saves you. Okay? We're going to have fun with this. Let's read it first. Matthew 5:17 to 20. Think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. That's the key, but to fulfill. For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law, to all be fulfilled. Notice, fulfilled again. Whosoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments, and shall teach men so, he shall be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever shall do and teach them, the same shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I say unto you that except your righteousness, and this is another key point, verse 20, for I say unto you that except your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, you shall in no case enter the kingdom of heaven. Now, a surface level reading of this passage would seem to confirm that Anan is right. Jesus is saying, follow the law in order to be saved, and if you break the least of the command, you'll be least in heaven, and off to hell you go. The operative word here is, think not that I come to destroy the law of prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. The question is, what does it mean that Jesus Christ fulfills the law and the prophets, not just the law? By fulfilling, in the context of Matthew, it means that Jesus fulfills all the prophecies pointing to him. All that the law and prophets said about him, he comes to do and fulfill. And above and beyond that, the law and the prophets were designed not only to point to Christ, but to have Christ bring out their true, deeper spiritual significance and meaning. Fulfillment in the context of Matthew, especially if you don't just stop at Matthew 5. The Sermon on the Mount begins at Matthew 5 and continues to Matthew 7. If you just continue reading the rest of the chapter, by fulfillment, he doesn't mean just following what it says. By fulfillment, he means following my explanation, my interpretation, my explication, and my fulfillment of all that the law and the prophets said about me. So he's not saying follow the law as it is. Follow the law as I complete it, fulfill it, perfect it, explain it, and live it out. You know how I know I'm right? You know how I know I'm right? Let's just read Matthew 5 itself, 27 and 28. So the law and the prophets are fulfilled by Jesus fulfilling all the predictions made about him and bringing out their true meaning and significance, exegeting them, explicating them, bringing out the true spiritual meaning of all that the Old Testament says, because they're designed to point to Christ and be perfected in the life and teachings of Christ. How do I know? Matthew 5, 27, 28. Let's see. Ye have heard that it was said by them of old time. Now notice he's going to quote the law. Thou shalt not commit adultery. But I say unto you, does that sound like Jesus is simply exhorting you to keep the letter of the law? Or is he telling you, this is what the law says, but I'm telling you what it means and how to fulfill it and what to do? But I say unto you, that whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery with her already in his heart. What does this sound like? Does it sound like Jesus Christ is saying, here's what the law says, keep it? or he's saying, this is what the law says, but here, let me tell you what it actually means, how to understand it, and how to apply it. Lord bless you, sisters. This is being archived on my YouTube page. Go back to listen to the rest of it. Almost done. So is Christ telling us to follow him as he fulfills the law and explains it, or to follow the law as it is written? Help me out. What is he saying here? You still don't get it? Matthew 5, 31 to 32. Matthew 5, 31, 32. Watch here. It hath been said, whosoever shall put away his wife, let him give her a writing of divorcement. That's again Deuteronomy 24, verses 1 to 4. But I say unto you, there's that word I say unto you again. He quotes the law of Moses, but he says, hey, this is not enough, because you have to hear what I say, and you have to accept how I interpret it, and you have to expect how I expect you to carry it out. But I say unto you, that whosoever shall put away his wife, saving for the cause of fornication, causeth her to commit adultery, and whosoever shall marry her that is divorced committeth adultery. Honestly, does this sound like Jesus saying, keep the law as it is written? Or no, keep what I say and follow how I explain and implement the law and fulfill it? What does it sound like? Help me out, guys. Just make sure you're following me. I'm not losing you. We're almost done. What does it sound like? Keep the law or keep my commands, which includes keeping my interpretation, explication of the law. Keeping what I tell you about the law and how to keep it. Follow what I say about it. And if you want further proof of it, let's see how he ends the Sermon on the Mount. Matthew 7, 24 to 27. Matthew 7, 24 to 27. Therefore, whosoever heareth these sayings of mine. Did you catch it? Whosoever heareth these sayings of mine. Does he say whoever hears these commands of the law and the prophets? Whosoever heareth these sayings of mine and doeth them, my sayings, my words, my instructions, and keeps them, I will liken him unto a wise man, which built his house upon a rock. And the rain descended, and floods came, and the winds blew, and beat upon that house, and it fell not. Right? And it fell not. For it was founded upon a rock. Now watch 26. And everyone that heareth these sayings of mine, my words, my instructions, my commands. Why didn't it say, whoever hears the law of Moses and doeth them not, doesn't keep my sayings, my words, my commands, shall be likened unto a foolish man, which built his house upon the sand, and the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew, and it beat upon that house, and it fell, and great was the fall of it. This is the end of the Sermon on the Mount, which started in Matthew 5. Does it sound like Jesus is saying, hear the words of Moses, keep the laws of Moses and the prophets, and then you'll be like a man who built his house on rock? Or is he emphasizing the fact it's my sayings, my instructions, my commands, my explanation, my interpretation of the Old Testament that you need to follow? What does it sound like? Is it clear as day or no? And if you still don't get it, let's see how he ends, or how Matthew ends the gospel. Matthew 28, 19 and 20. Let's see how he ends the gospel. Matthew 28, verses 19 and 20. Go ye therefore and teach all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost, teaching them to observe all things whatsoever I have commanded you. Oops, that's got to be a typo. What it actually said was, teach him to observe all things whatsoever Moses commanded you in the law and what the prophet said. Is that what he said? Teaching them to observe all things whatsoever I have commanded you. And lo, I am with you always, even unto the end of the world. Amen. Now, again, honestly, show me where I'm wrong. Both at the conclusion of the Sermon on the Mount and at the end of Matthew, Jesus stresses it's his sayings, his commands, his instructions that you need to keep and teach others to follow. Do you see it or no? Before I move on to my next point. Amen, Angie. She got it. Rejection of salvation by works, but trust the rock, Jesus Christ. Amen. Everyone getting it? Is it making sense, Patar, everyone? Even though I went over this yesterday, I know you're hearing it again, second time. Just that I didn't record it. But what about Matthew 5:20? Isn't Jesus saying then, you got to keep his commands in order to enter the kingdom? Matthew 5:20? Let's see. Let's see what our Lord is saying here in context. For I say unto you that except your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, you shall no case enter into the kingdom of heaven. Well, okay, let's go with it. So Jesus is talking about his interpretation, his commandments. But still he's saying, you got to keep his commandments to such an extent that you become so righteous that your righteousness becomes greater than that of the scribes and Pharisees, or you won't enter the kingdom. Okay, it sure sounds like I have to keep the righteous deeds that Jesus commanded me to keep to enter the kingdom. Until we read Matthew 5:48, because there in Matthew 5:48, the same chapter, we are told that the righteousness that is greater and exceeds the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, the righteousness that will bring me into the kingdom is perfect righteousness. Matthew 5:48. Matthew 5:48. Be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect. Did you catch it? The righteousness that Jesus demands for a follower, a disciple to have in order to enter the kingdom. The only righteousness that far exceeds the righteous deeds, the righteous living, or the so-called righteous lifestyle of the scribes and Pharisees is that of absolute perfection. Your righteousness, your love, has to be just as perfect as the Father's righteousness and love is perfect. You see what it says in that chapter? So my question is, can anyone attain that type of righteousness? Can you be as perfect in your love as the Father is perfect in his love? So then that means we're all going to hell? No. That's where Matthew 19:21 comes in. Matthew 19:21. Here's the righteousness that avails itself before God, the righteousness that brings us into life. Jesus said unto him, Matthew 19:21, if thou wilt be perfect, there goes that word perfect, Matthew 5:38, be therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect. If thou wilt be perfect, you want to be perfect? Go and sell that thou hast, and give to the poor, and thou shalt have treasure in heaven, and come and follow me. Bam, there you go. Do you want that righteousness that far exceeds the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees? A righteousness that must be perfect, like the Father's righteousness and love are perfect? Then the only way you can have that righteousness is to give it all up, follow and trust in Jesus. There you go, Matthew 19:21. So which part of Matthew supports Adnan's claim that Jesus and Matthew taught keeping the law of Moses, righteous deeds, is what saves you, not the cross of Jesus Christ? Which part of Matthew?